Many have asked, what is the secret to the universe? We've explored such potentials, from the many archetypes found throughout mythology to the complex mathematics of modern man. My teacher and mentor, Marko Rodin, pioneered a field of study called Vortex Based Mathematics, where we study the intrinsic nature of pattern. My name is Gregor Arturo, and I'd like to offer you a new perspective to reality.
As showing, it's called the dandelion puff principle. How I have found tethered into the interior of the volume of the torus on the z-axis is spirit emanating out, and it rarefies the skin, and that's what creates numbers. That's where numbers come from. Numbers are real. And this particle is irresistible, and it travels in a straight line till it punctures the skin of the torus. Each one of the torus cell skins, diamond tiles, are little facets aimed at the source of these emanations. And I could talk about this forever. And then those are underpinning nested vortices, and they control the electricity in the magnetic field to aim it into this, so it sustains itself, so it maintains this. I have found the secret of inexhaustible electricity. I have found a way to end all diseases and produce unlimited food by harnessing this particle that you see right here. Don't believe me? Tough bunnies, because it's true. I'm not making it up. I have found the source of all motion, vibration, time, everything.
Hello, hello, Gregor Arturo here in lovely Asheville, North Carolina.
Gregor Arturo here, and
Hey, Gregor Arturo here, saying hello.
Gregor Arturo here, live in Portland, Oregon.
So, Gregor Arturo here. Today, I start what I've been trying to do for about 2 years now, and that's to build a proper Roden coil. I'm going to say Roden coil because people identify with. I'm actually going to be building hexagram. But it's understanding coils, the different types of coils, and I like to call the Roden coil a dodecagram. I'll probably be doing one next week. But I'm going to work on the hexagram. It's a little simpler. And to start things off, I'm going to flip this switch.
What happens when you start to helix the wire and how it works in terms of creating vorticular geometry within the ether of space.
It's actually not a new design, it's been built. It's finally been built. Simplest of the Vortex Based Mathematics matrices, the 6x6. The 6x6 matrix, which is in my other videos, rendered this piece of geometry. Ta-da!
What if you had an idea that could change the world overnight, and that such an idea would label you as mad and lost in a world of fantasy, that such visions of grandeur were no more than a science fiction epic barely holding itself up to a B-rate movie?
And so when you think Tesla, think of the man. Don't think of the car. Think of the man, because he is what made this world great. Even though so much of his technologies have been buried, his technologies have been the paradigm for now. Because even within the human psyche and the human subconscious, when people think of an intellectual, they think of Albert Einstein. But when Albert Einstein was interviewed by a journalist one time, the journalist asked him, how does it feel to be the most intelligent man on the planet? And Einstein replied, I don't know. You're going to have to ask Nikola Tesla. With the one, the only, the star coil. The mighty, mighty star coil. For it is with this piece of geometry that all of our technological reality will change. And why do I say that? Because I'm mad. What we'd like to show you here is the intrinsic nature of pattern in a field of study called Vortex Based Mathematics. This was founded by my mentor and teacher, Marko Rodin,
And I want to show a little bit of a different perception to understanding this math and how it relates to you and, say, a revolution in understanding energy exchange and technologies. And so right here we have the number circle, and so we're all familiar with the number line. And so we're looking at, you can say, a feminine view to mathematics instead of a masculine. We're looking at the cyclical over the linear. And in the traditional base 10 system, you can divide it up into 9 numbers, 1 through 9 around this circle. And so you have like 9 perceptions, 9 patterns of the same thing, of the infinite. And to really understand this mathematics really requires a understanding and integration of what the infinite is, the concept of infinities, and also perception and consciousness in relation to understanding these information systems. Because reality as a whole is a holographic information system. And this is the foundation to understanding how this all works. And so there's a simple notion of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and we come to the 10 becomes a 1. And so you, in traditional numerology, you can take any number and add one number to it, add the numbers in the sequence to themselves to get, you could say, an integrated digit, quantum number. There's many different terms. And so, simple example, 29. 2 plus 9 is 11, 1 plus 1 is 2. And so you can keep counting toward infinity, and every single number in traditional mathematics you can break down to a single digit. This gives you the qualitative aspect to the number. And so here's the kicker, though, to understanding this mathematics. And this is what I call perceptual mechanics. How do we interpret this math and the actual process that's going on? And so with an information system with the infinite, you have 9 aspects of the infinite within this number system. And in reality, every number system exists. You could divide this into 3 aspects. You can divide this into 26 aspects. And the thing is, every pattern exists, but the thing is there's also the path of least resistance. What is the easiest way for nature to evolve? And so if I'm observing this 1, this specific aspect within this whole of infinity, we're dividing infinity into 9 aspects. That means the conscious mind, the masculine perception, is focalizing on one aspect. And in the process, we're unfocalizing, we're expanding our perception into the unconscious, into these 8 other numbers. And so if I count like a round, I just keep counting this into a circle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on. Every time I say that number in existence, let's say I said this for infinity, I just kept going in loops. In some ways, this is how the universe works. And that when I'm going to these loops, that one moment in existence, I'm saying 1, there's 8 other moments in existence where I'm saying one of the other numbers. And so I'm experiencing this moment me saying 1, and I'm forgetting the 8 other moments in existence where I'm saying the other numbers. This is the fundamental polarization of the universe. This is the prime mover of energy and is inherent to manifestation. In that if God or the infinite wants to experience him or herself, he has to forget all else in creation to perceive one single aspect. This is a fundamental polarization. And so between the infinitely small and the infinitely large. And so this is a way to interpret the number patterns that come up in these mathematics to how they actually work. And that there's actually a perceptual process, a perceptual computer, which this is reality. And so one of the profound patterns in the mathematics is doubling and halving. And so 1, 2, 4, 8, 7. This is the 16. 1 and 6 is 7. 32. 3 and 2 is 5. 64. 6 and 4 is 10. 1 and 0 is 1. 128 is 2. 256 is 4. 512, 8. 102, 4, 7, and so on. And it goes on for infinity. It shows that in the doubling sequence in the normal base 10 system, there's a specific pattern of these 6 numbers. At the same time, it works in reverse with halving. We have 1, you have 0.5, 0.25, which is 7, 0.125, which is 8, 0.0625, which is 4, and so on. And so it's almost like this magical midpoint of a pattern within the system of creation. And so it also creates this interesting pattern, which is a little bit more to explain. I'm not going to go into huge detail about it. Is we have the 693 and the 396. And this is an oscillation between these 2 patterns. And so these patterns transcribe down to this matrix down here. And there's a couple other patterns that make up this matrix that I want to showcase. There's the linear patterns I was talking about, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's counting by 1. If you're counting by 8, the 1 is polar to the 8. So we got 8, 16, 1 and 6 is 7, 24 is 6, 32 is 5, and so on. So the 1 and 8 are polar relationships with this linear counting. They're completely out of phase in the way we're communicating those patterns. With the 2, you have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and so on. And so counting by 2 skips every 2, and we create a specific star pattern. The 2 is reflective to the 7, so you'd have 7, 14, 21. 3, when you're counting by 3, it always counts in this little trinity set where it's separate from the rest of the linear sequences. Where all the numbers in the doubling sequence, those linear sequences, they all include one number from the set. Where the 3 and the 6 include only 3 numbers from the set. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. 6 is 6, 12, 18, 24. And so they're flip-flopped to each other. Where 9, when you're counting by 9, 9, 18, 27, 36, and so forth, those numbers always add up to 9. This is the fundamentals to understanding this mathematics. And so all those patterns I just showcased, the linear sequences of counting by different numbers, the doubling sequences, and the more mysterious 6, 9, 3, and 3, 9, 6, all those patterns can interweave into this 6 by 6 matrix. And so the first line here, we have the doubling sequence, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. It's also here in reverse, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, 2, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, and 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1. And so there's 4 lines of the doubling halving sequence. You could say one's doubling and one's halving. It's all based on perception. And we can get lost in a paradox all day long. The trinity sequence exists twice in between the doubling and halving sequences. And so the horizontal lines relate to the basis of this geometry right here. You also have a vertical axis, and the vertical axis is really interesting. And so to describe this, you have to understand that this matrice can consist, it's a flat sheet, but if you fold it in half, it becomes a tube. And you can take that tube and fold it into itself and create a torus like this one here, the Star of David. And so this vertical axis, the A connects to the B, connects to the C. And so what I mean by that is when you're wrapping this matrice into a torus, that this edge connects to this edge and this edge connects to this edge, but they aren't perfectly lined up. And so they're a little offset. And so this one, the A doesn't come back to the A, it comes back to the B. And so this creates 2 sets of 18 number sequences, because there's 36 numbers in this matrix. That's this line down here below, where you got 1, 3, 2, 2, 3, 1, 4, 9, 5, 8, 6, 7, 7, 6, 8, 5, 9, 4. As you can see with the green and the red, you have a linear sequence going in one direction and a linear sequence going in another direction. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. So you have 2 linear sequences out of phase overlapped. And so if you go back to this idea of perceptual mechanics, where we're focalizing on one aspect and forgetting everything else, the conscious and the unconscious working together in this information system, that the actual process of me focalizing on one and unfocusing on the others and going through that sequence creates this vibrational sequence, this pattern throughout time and space. And so there's both temporal and spatial components, which you can equate to music and geometry. And so if I'm saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then another person is saying the 3, 2, 1 out of phase with me, then it's like a type of music, but you're getting a specific harmony, a specific rhythm to this music. And that it would equate to in what you would call in vibrational mechanics as a longitudinal standing waveform. And so when I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this equates to a longitudinal waveform. When you have 2 opposing longitudinal waveforms overlapped with each other that are out of phase, such as this, then it becomes a standing wave. And so, which I recommend going looking into some vibrational mechanics. You can just wiki longitudinal waves, transverse waves, standing waves, and really learn how these waves are fundamental to the universe. And so this pattern happens twice in this matrix, where one's A to B to C, and the other one's X to Y to Z. And so also diagonal, you have the same longitudinal linear sequences, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then going down 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And so you have a longitudinal sequence going diagonal one direction and one the other direction. And then also the other diagonal, we have counting by 2, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and then 4, 6, 8, 1, 3. And so you have these nested vibrational pathways of longitudinal waves going one way and the other way, and then exactly crisscross. You're getting this beautiful symmetry of pattern. And so this matrix also exists as two other matrices, to where the diagonals, one's counting by 1 and one's counting by 2, or you could say it's 1 and 8 side by side, or it's 2 and 7 side by side. There's many ways you can detail these concepts because they're all polarity in essence. And then you're looking at polarity coming into balance. All of the universe is balancing existence. And that's why we can't just focus on the conscious concept, the masculine concept. That's what's gone wrong in our world and thrown us so off track is we've forgotten, literally forgotten, about the unconscious and the feminine. And that's so important to this polarizing process. And so this matrix also exists to where you could say one axis is counting by 2 and the other diagonal axis is counting by 1. And flip-flopped, you could have one counting by 1 and counting by 4, and the other one counting by 2 and 4. And so these three matrices all exist 120 degrees out of phase with each other. They're polyphase, just like Nikola Tesla's AC polyphase motor. He intuited this flow form, which I'm going to get more into, back in the 1800s, and built this device based off this phasing system, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The significance of the 1, 2, 3 phasing, which Tesla also relates to the secrets of the universe, could be found in 3, 6, and 9. And that this pulsing sequence is what's fundamental to rotation. And so this is a guide to understanding the most intrinsic aspect to what you call like fractal rotation. This creates a fractal interference pattern, it creates fractal compression. And so it really takes a grasp, I was saying, with understanding infinities and fractals to understand at its core what's going on in here. And so one example with fractal interference is if you have a wave here, and then you have another wave, so forth, that's at a different frequency, and another wave at a different frequency, you have these points where nodes in which cross the middle axis. You could say we're creating a node at every single point in existence. The wave is actually giving rise to solid context to our reality. And now you're saying, oh, all atoms are empty space. Well, at the same time, they're also all solid. When you're looking at the notion of the particle-wave duality, the potential is existing everywhere. It can collapse at any point in existence as long as perception is engaging that point of existence. It relates to the famous saying, if a tree falls in a forest, does anyone really hear it? And no one really hears it, but the forest does. And so that's a whole other paradox we can get into in terms of like gradients of consciousness. And so as we get back to this matrix, the thing about the polyphase is every one of these numbers has two other numbers in the other two matrices. And so you have what Marko calls the family groups. And so it's the triads in this right here. You have 9, 3, and 6 as one triad, 1, 4, 7 as another triad, and 2, 5, 8 as another triad. And so the doubling sequence oscillates between two of these family groups. And so if in the other maps, this 1 is a 4 and a 7.
So every number in the doubling sequence in each 6x6 matrix oscillates between each number in its family group, while the trinity sequence 3, 6, and 9 stay constant. This relates to Marko's interpretation that you are supposed to wrap each doubling sequence in a torus with copper wire, and skip the trinity sequence, which Marko calls the gap space. However, the wrapping of the Roden coil, which has been experimented with for years by the Vortex Based Math community, has been the wrong vibrational axis. Phenomenal results were still being achieved due to the interweaving of the magnetic field and is akin to the idea of Celtic knots. When a standard solenoid coil is de-energized, the magnetic field collapses near the speed of light. With a Roden coil, the magnetic field collapses at a more finite speed. This makes it much more realistic to build the magnetic field with each pulsing cycle, if the field is able to grow faster than it decays.
The truly profound idea with these coils is creating a perfect waveguide for electromagnetic surface waves and relates to the concept of a tokamak reactor.
Well, hi, this is Jack. I wanted to follow up and show you how isolated this thing really is. So the power here, so let's connect the power up for the little neo ball spinner to get the thing going. Okay, so there it goes. There's the neon flashes sometimes, and there's the power light. And so now I can show you disconnect the power altogether. Okay, I disconnected the power. Now I'm going to pick up the cup. Picking up the cup, and it seems to still have an effect some distance away from the unit. Here we're about 5 or 6 or 7 feet away. It's still spinning around. We're probably about 10 feet from the Roden coil now, and the magnet's still going, so still rotating. And there's no power to the unit whatsoever. So we have some type of a resonance going on between the neo ball and the Roden coil, and perhaps the MOSFET circuit too, which is just a simple circuit. See how far away we can get from this thing. Now this is with the power off. There, it finally died down. Okay, thanks.
In this animation, each family group is represented as additive, subtractive, and neutral lighting.
It's just like a movie, it's a film where it flashes from one matrix to the next matrix to the next matrix. And the thing is, our universe is really static. Nothing's actually in motion, in that it's like the whole background, the actual tangible aspects of our reality is it's just like LEDs. It's RGB LEDs. That's all it is. And the R's turning on, the red's turning on, then the green's turning on, the blue's turning on. It's just cycling between these colors is really all it's doing. And so just like if you have a bank of lights with lights set up side by side, you turn one on and then you turn it off and you turn the next one on, and you do it fast enough, it looks like the light's moving. I mean, it's how a TV works. It's all just illusion. And so you can get into complex understanding of how that light, the information is exchanged throughout that system, which is where music and geometry becomes fundamental. And so this matrice, coupled with the two other ones, gives you the flow form for understanding the Star of David, the hexagram, the Seal of Solomon. There's so many different names it goes by. And so this 6-pointed star, you could say it might be like a leap for many people to go from this matrix to this, but there's fundamentals to understanding with perceptual mechanics and vibrational mechanics how this information translates into this coil. And so this coil is an idealization of Nikola Tesla's AC polyphase motor. It allows us to take advantage of the Cooper pairing and superconductivity where electrons move in tandem but out of phase. This is a double helical phenomena in that when you have two items essentially spinning around each other, moving in a double helix, that you can get this like yin-yang coupling, and you get like cat and mouse fueling each other perpetually. There's many other things to understand really what perpetual motion is, but it's when the whole system comes into coherence and it's self-resonant. And that's a whole conversation itself. The point I want to get to with all this is the simplicity, in that we can take these fundamental notions of the conscious and the unconscious aspects of perception, which is the 6 and the 3, and there's also the subconscious. And so the conscious is the scientist, the masculine, the unconscious is the feminine, it's the artist, and the 9 is the philosopher, it's the holistic systems thinking. And so you could say the conscious masculine perception is looking at a specific object. The unconscious is seeing the interrelationship between aspects. And the subconscious is seeing the whole picture, the whole system. And it's these forms of perception that polarize out of existence for us to engage experience. Otherwise, we would just be an infinite state of being, which should be non-thinking. It would be non-experiential because we're just everything. And so we have to forget in order to, forgetting something out of the process. It's a receiving to let go. And so one idea is to relay a piece of alchemy. There's Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which is a mystery school in Britain. And this is where the main teachings come from, but you could say this teachings also exist throughout alchemy. In that if you have this right here, and you place a gold star over it with the symbol of the alchemical planet of the sun, and then also as the focal point, that's in the conscious perception inside this torus. And outside of the torus, you have the 6 other alchemical planets: Mercury, Venus, the Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars. And so the thing is, there's 7 alchemical planets. These are also 7 alchemical metals, the 7 days of the week, the 7 chakras. There's so many aspects I can go through in understanding the 7 days of creation. And it's unbelievably fundamental to everything, and how actually it's the fundamental process to manifestation. There is in alchemy the 7 alchemical processes of transmutation. There's the 7 rays. It goes on, and you can see these associative patterns. And the thing is, when you take these 6 and put it around a torus with 1 in the core, specifically the Star of David, then you're recognizing this whole information system. You're taking the infinite and dividing it into 7 aspects, just like we're dividing it into 9 aspects right here. And all these different number systems are entirely interrelated. They're not separate. And so the idea is you're recognizing this whole information system. You're recognizing the 7 different parts of the infinite in these different aspects. Let me give you an example to understand the purpose of this operation. Let's say you're in Mercury retrograde. And we all know how Mercury retrograde can go, and it can bog you down and so forth if you're not really ready for or up to that level of adept mastery, which I don't think any of us really are. But you can turn off the Mercury. I put it in the center of this circle, just recognizing everything else in the system, and you can say, hey, Mercury, I banish you. I am turning off your program, your thought process in my being. And so guess what? Mercury retrograde doesn't affect you anymore. But you're also without the abilities of, say, the mercurial thought process. So there's positives and negatives to it. And really, this is just opening the door to a whole new way in which we can explore consciousness from the idea of a perceptual computer, from the idea that we are this information system. And a way we experience this is what does a Monday feel like? What does a Tuesday taste like? What does a Wednesday smell like? We go through these 7 cycles every day, every week, in a very qualitative fashion. And so you could say with this concept of alchemy, we're recognizing the whole week, and we're focalizing on one day. But being right now is a Sunday, which is actually relates to the sun and the heart chakra. With this geometry right here is right now we're focalizing that literally you could say our reality is manifesting as this coil in the sense that our system is focalizing on the sun, and it's ignoring or it's not ignoring, it's being polarized into the unconscious the other 6 days of the week, which are always happening. And that's the thing about time is it's really not a linear forward motion. We're just re-engaging cycles, and there's a reason we have 7 days of the week. This Sunday, it's always Sunday, no matter what. It's always going to be a Sunday. We're just evolving the pattern of Sunday in these cycles. And so the basis to this with alchemy and manifestation is we can use our perception, our consciousness, to actually engage the reality that we call, the computer system, which we call reality. And so the ring, such as with J.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings and C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia, which the first book, which most people aren't familiar with, The Magician's Nephew, also focuses on the ring. These two individuals were the paramount fantasy authors of the early 1900s, and they used to hang out and talk. and realize the significance of the ring to human consciousness. The ring is the boundary layer between the finite and the infinite. Or you can even say the finite is really the infinitesimally small and the infinitesimally large. It's how we create a geometrical polarization, even though there is a musical construct to it as well. So there's the simple aspect that all the crazy technology we have in the world is, even with the ancients, of drawing the Star of David, and, oh, I did a pentagram. Be drawing a pentagram, because you can do these with all the star geometries, of how to take specific aspects and place them on the outside and focalize one on the inside, and that you're honoring all of the infinity. You're not just focalizing on a piece, you're honoring all aspects of the infinity and selecting a very specific conscious piece. The thing I'm getting at is the universe at the end of the day is really simple. And there is a language within science, within mathematics, that we can utilize to understand the paramount aspects of polarization. And that right here in this space, we can perform magnificent acts of you could say technology, in that we're in a computer. The human being is the most advanced, you could say, organic computer in this reality. And we're all just fractals. We're just microcosms upon the macrocosms. And that we can really come to a rebirth within ourselves in terms of how we relate to the natural world. And it's not that complex. Really, the biggest thing at the end of the day is just waking up and realizing how you relate to the whole of creation, and that there's this infinite aspect to all of it, and that you yourself are infinite. You are the infinitesimally small. You are that conscious aspect focalized in one thing in relation to everything else. And so I hope this can integrate into your awareness and consciousness and begin to apply it to who knows what, because it's really endless, and that it can be as simple as a song you make to designing an engine that can take us to the stars and back, if deep space is really what they say it is. And so, thank you, and many blessings. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, make sure to put them in the comment section, because it very well could end up being our next video. Learn more at www.gregor.ninja, where I'm talking about really cool things like Nikola Tesla and these star coils, and how that's changing the scope of the universe, and well, it's coming to a reality near you. So I invite you to participate. Thank you, and blessings.
History repeats itself, in that Nikola was studying the intrinsic nature of energy itself, and
He didn't have the tools.
Well, he had the tools, but he didn't have the full tools.
Says if you know the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, you know this. If you know the secret of the 3, 6, and 9, you know the magnificence of the universe. You know the quote, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But as you now know, it isn't 3, 6, and 9. That's a family number group. What is it? It's 3, 9, 6. If you take the 9 out of the center, then there's no chewy gum in the lollipop candy center treat at the end of eating it. You know that.
Yeah,
the 9's got to be in the middle. 3, 9, 6, 6, 9, 3. And it flips. And why does it flip? Because it's a nested vortice, 2 separate vortices. One's compressing, one's decompressing. And they're staggered. And there's a grain and a boundary. Tesla didn't have at his disposal what we have, what you have today.